minutes.
Yeah, I
The
see it.
chat. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me go to. I got some of your stuff pulled up here. Let me make sure. I want to go to. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna tag you. Edit. So you're still in upstate New York?
Yes, sir.
Oh God, don't call me sir. I just turned 62 in December.
Oh, I would say it if you were 22, if that makes you feel any better.
Don't lie.
For real.
Um, yeah, so I mean, it's going to take a. Well, no, they're already coming in. We've been suppressed a lot, so it takes like 3 minutes for people to. No, it's coming in fast.
Oh, nice.
I think what happened was I put the stops. We had such a high algorithm. Not really. I mean, it was always suppressed, but I mean, if you're on enough, it comes up enough, and at least the people that know you. And then we stopped, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of a double sword. We've had a lot of tech issues, but I think I've heard a lot of people have. But anyway, enough of that.
Yeah.
All right, we got 21 friends in the house. We got
Nice.
beautiful sister Danielle Wilk, who does some amazing work. We're going to talk about that. We've probably done about 10 shows together over the years, and she's really tapped into something, and we're going to explore that in real
Uh-oh.
time. Because I'm like amazed. I'm amazed by it. And what I was telling you before I turned it on was when you came in, I got this ping, which isn't. It happens with a few different people, but it seemed to happen with you, and it's been a while. And I haven't really been on social media. I haven't really been doing a whole lot of anything but laying on my back, looking at the ceiling. But until about 2, 3 weeks ago. But so I went into your stuff because sometimes I'll pop in and I'll listen for a minute, and then I'll, you know. But I went in and looked at it more thoroughly and was looking at the sequence of your video productions and how they were following everything that I was, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
wow.
and so I was like, yeah, she's really tapped in because you were tapped in from before, but now it's gone deeper, and you seem to have a beat on it. So that would be an interesting thing to talk about. But Danielle Wilk, welcome back to Soul Speaks 5D. Thanks for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence from New York, upstate New York. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is that there are probably, I don't know, like say in the last maybe couple of years, there's probably a dozen sisters that, I kind of interacted with like you. And, I tried to help and support, because I could see that, because I know what it's like to come out and start talking on the camera and nobody's there with you, right? And so, yeah, it's been a real pleasure to see some of them keep going, quite a few of them actually. And I think yours is really kind of like a template because when I tell people, even guys, over the years, podcast wise, is just make sure you're consistent and come out every day and work your community, comments and and just let them know and that's all you really have to do. A lot of people get into the podcasting, the video production, and they'll do like a video in a week and then another one in a week. It always starts out really fast, like almost every day, and then it drops and
Mhm.
then it drops, and then they'll hit me up and I'm like, I've been doing this for 9 weeks and I only got 62 people, and I'll go back and tell them, did you share it to different groups? Did you create a group like Harmonious Hearts
Mhm.
and Facebook? And then you got a presence on a couple other platforms. And that's really it. Because people will recognize the truth frequency. And what's interesting about yours is that you use cards so much. And we can talk about this too, and it's real time, which is
Mhm.
really, to me, so important because it's like what we're kind of walking into, which is like being spontaneous and creative and imaginative and having faith in that multidimensionality and the connectivity that we have with each other. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
You're good.
I want to share uh, just an example of what I'm talking about because I feel like what a big part of this show has been over the years you know, the kind of the retelling or the going over of people's stories, you know, particularly in real time. A lot of times it's regarding the triggers or awakenings or this and that, but you know, because someone down the line will be going through the same thing, or maybe considering doing the same thing, like in the case of
Mhm.
something like this. And I do believe a lot of sisters will be coming out more and more and more. They already have. But let me show you this. What I'm talking about. Let's see. This is YouTube, and you started July 13th, 2022. So that would be
Mhm.
about right. You know, I remember talking to you about it. I don't know if it was a year and a half, 2 years, whatever. And you know, just try to give you some pointers and that type of thing. But so this is 206,000 views in that time, 113 videos. So you're talking about, like, you know, really like one a week. You know,
Well,
I'm sure in the beginning you didn't do too many, but you know what I mean?
I actually have a lot more content that I have
Really?
unlisted right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because well, part of that, I'll tell you really quick why. Some of it I'm re-releasing, but part of it was where I was really going through a transformation of my own voice.
Oh,
So, as I was evolving, it was like I kinda had to I didn't erase it, so I wasn't, like, denying it, but I kinda had to let go of that version of me so I could evolve with the channel for a little bit, but so I've, settled in now. But that was actually it's kind of like it was weird. I put that on the back burner, but then I also, like, uncloaked another part of myself, and that's when
uh-huh.
it started growing.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
We're gonna have to learn about that. We- We're gonna have to learn about that. I'm gonna come off of this for a second, and then we'll
Yeah.
come back to this page. But yeah, big props. I'd like to hear
Mhm.
about that too. Yeah. So just to go to the voice thing, and then I'll take you through this chronology. And this is just the last few weeks, right? I'm looking at
Okay.
your stuff, and I'm only looking at the titles, and then I tapped into a few. I didn't have a bunch of time, you know, in the last few days to sit to listen to videos because I was doing some videos and working and all that. But um, but tell me about this. So we'll go back to that. But tell me about this thing with the voice, because I think the voice is so important. Like, to me, it's almost like the central location. It's almost
Yeah.
like this particular incarnation's higher heart or something. And I've been um, sensing that for quite a while, because about a year and a half ago I started to make music in the studio, or to do lyrics and try to sing and rap, and it's all improvisational. Sometimes I write the
Nice.
words down, and Ty's music's amazing, and it's just this whole trip. And I've found that it's centered in my voice,
Mhm.
and this is what I wanted to ask you about. And it's not just in the resonance of my voice; it's in the energy of my voice. And I have
Yeah.
a feeling that's kind of applicable to you too. But so, what happened with your voice? What did you notice, and what was that all? How did that all go? How did that transform?
So it's interesting, it was twofold, and it was actually right probably around the last time me and you talked. I pulled back a little bit. I was still doing videos, but I knew that well, you met me right when I was going through, like, a big transformation. So
Right.
it was like that 3.5 years, I was really in a transitional state. And then, last summer, it hit this pocket where it's gonna sound funny, but I wasn't even resonating with my own old like, the content. You know, some of it I was, because
Yeah.
some of it was new, but some of it I was still delivering from what I used to know how to do,
Right.
and so I took a step back and I was like, "I'm ready to integrate everything I've been learning at a deeper level," so I pulled back for a while and was a lot more quiet, and it I think, like, that first year of my channel, I was getting used to doing videos and being out there every day, and also, um, really, I think, exploring for myself what this masculine, feminine journey meant for me internally and externally. Where did I land? What did I believe? You know, what felt rang true for me? And so I was on this exploration, and then around that time, I'd say actually this fall, I really just started owning my inner union.
Okay.
And that part of it, regardless of everything I was learning from the external mirrors, I just really stepped into that part of myself, and that was the shift of my voice. It was like it felt much more integrated within my internal energies.
Yeah. See, that's even weirder because I would say at the end of the fall, that probably didn't come into my mind consciously, you know, but it was happening, and it did
Mhm,
eventually. I'd say probably maybe late January, early February. I probably said the exact same thing or had the same self realization, right? And then the
mhm,
other thing is, I do remember when that happened with you because I was trying to get the network started, and I'm like, like a hamster on a wheel, just you know. And I remember, when you're in that, I don't know. I guess the recollection's so easy to pinpoint things because it's all, it's coming through in the body. But I remember getting a note from you, and you were telling me a couple things, but that was essentially what you were saying. You were saying,
mhm.
I'm regrouping. I'm going to step back a little bit. So that kind of, yeah. And we made a comment together before we turned it on, like we hadn't seen each other since last year, but man, a lot happened.
Yes.
So once you came out of it in the fall, you started to, obviously you were continuing to work. And that would have that puts you pretty close to what I've just seen going back into February. And you mentioned the inner union. You're really tapped in. I'm talking about, like, I'm reading your stuff and I'll show you an example, the examples. And I'm thinking, how when somebody will be, um, you know, giving some intel or talking, in a given moment on a given day, and you're like, man, they're like speaking my words, or like, how can they know that? But the difference here is you're talking about a masculine and a feminine. I can relate on the internal part, and I can also relate on the external. And
Mm.
I'm thinking, how's this chick doing this?
That's cool.
But that point where you started to come out with the voice that you have now, the
Mhm.
integrated, unified uh, marriage, or really, right? Um, what happened to your work? I mean, can you pinpoint it? Did it take
Well,
on a? Yeah.
I can. It was really like, everything was quiet for me in every direction, but I was like, "I've grown so much and I have so much to share. Why am I here? What am I doing?" You know what I mean? It was like, "What's the point of me going through all of this to not to just sit here alone," right? So, I was praying on it, and one day in the shower, I got a download to do 22 days of Inner Union series, and I was like, "Seriously?" I was like, "Okay," and I just committed to it, and it started December 1st, and it was really a journey for me, because I only had, like, 100 something subscribers at that time, and
This was in December.
yeah,
You had 500,
yeah,
and now you have 3,700.
yeah.
Wow, wow,
So I just honestly, it was a journey for me. Like I said to you, it was like owning
yeah,
my internal union. Because yes, I do know I feel pretty tapped into at least part of the masculine and feminine collective, a part that I'm connected to. And, but it felt like I felt really comfortable owning the inner union part of it, so I just grounded into that, and about halfway through it, it kinda just really opened up. But each video, I was going through a series of going deeper into myself because you'll laugh, but my own videos activate me.
I'm not.
They make
That
me
doesn't
work.
make me laugh.
They make me work, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so, yeah, the whole process, it was then that really started to open up, and um, it's just the process of, I mean, I know, going with, like, the roller coaster and the ups and downs of the process and the
yeah,
learning.
yeah. And obviously, I'm not going to assume, but it just seems like it's everybody's concurring, is that those fluctuations, the uh, the sting doesn't last as long, as
Mm-mm.
before. I mean, it just keeps getting faster and faster. Information is coming in faster and faster and faster.
Yes.
And so it is getting easier. I can't remember again. I remembered yesterday, but there was somebody wrote, yeah, like this whole thing just happened. But at the same, there's a part of me that's just like freaking out, you know, and then there's another part of me that knows everything's fine in a
Yeah.
way that, it's not just words or a cliche. So,
Yes.
and I don't know if you ever talked about this before, but just kind of as a lead in, I want to show some examples of what I saw that I was referring to earlier. So, how did, I interviewed, like, for instance, Mary Costello the other day, and she's tapped into different parts of the multidimensionality, like we all are. But
Mhm.
it seems like some people are pulling through certain elements, like divine feminine, or in this case, masculine feminine, or whatever it may be. You're one of, I guess yours seems to be the sacred union, the masculine and the feminine in consideration equally. You've spoken very openly about your own masculine in
Mhm.
previous shows before the pop, before the
Mhm.
pop and late fall. And by the way, that's when my pop occurred. Um, but yeah, how did you know that that was your calling, or that's where I mean, because that's pretty unique. I mean, to see a single person, you see couples doing it, but to see a single person, and I've seen a few, really to be as tapped in as you are. How did
It's interesting, but I was really on that journey. It started for me knowingly around 2004.
Wow.
Internally, like, it was before anybody was talking about it. I found a book in the bookstore called Twin Souls, and it just honestly, at that time, it was definitely that drive of like, "Oh my gosh, I want a partnership like that." Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I was super new to all of this. Like, I wasn't even doing this work at that time at all. I was working with kids. But over the years, I just something about that working with my internal energies resonated, I think because of how I grew up, and even though obviously I'm a feminine, I very much had to grow up a lot in my masculine energies to survive, so I could relate to that part of it, and something about the journey of just understanding or looking at both sides, um spoke to me, and it was like a fluctuation of looking at my relationships that I had in my life as those mirrors, and so and just bringing it back to myself, I guess, and then it got amplified for sure when I had the experience with the masculine, like, 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and that took everything I was doing, like, it was almost like prep, and then that blew it wide open for me. And what's interesting is that, believe it or not, the masculine and feminine stuff is what I'm guided to talk about, but it's really only honestly a portion of what I do.
Really.
But it's been what I've been guided, because sometimes I actually literally had a friend, I had this conversation, I'm like, "Sometimes I feel like, should I be talking about more of the topics that I'm able to talk about, like, on a more, just neutral platform, but I keep being guided back to the masculine and feminine because the people who've been activated within that are
Right.
so ready to go."
Right.
And
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I picked up on that looking at your stuff. Yeah, like big time. So, I mean, and let me ask you this too. A lot of what I've seen you doing, you're pulling cards as you do it. And I referred to
Mhm.
that earlier, which I
Yeah.
find pretty incredible. Now, I've seen a lot of that. We've all seen a lot of people using, different tools, including tarot and whatever. But is that how you do this? I mean, is that part of the way you do it? Because I
It's
know,
real
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
sorry. It's weird, but I actually there's also a lot of videos I don't use the cards.
okay,
In most of my sessions, I don't use the cards.
right.
I've actually just used them as a tool
Yeah, of course.
when I wanna just totally be coming from an open, neutral space, and the cards don't usually speak to me about the same thing. It's like whatever pops in that
Right.
moment.
Right.
And usually it's things I'm already thinking about and that are swirling around. I kinda look at it like if we're tapped into spiritual Google, right?
Right.
The quantum, the subconscious of the collective, and then I just use those tools, those pictures or those words to help me focus the messages I've already been receiving.
Yeah. Well, it's just the way that you do it to me. It's like they're, well, they are. Or maybe I guess you could say they're an extension of you or
Yeah.
whoever's there, the quantum
Yeah.
thought. But you can,
Yes.
I guess you could say you can see the third energy collaboration or connection with you coming from it. And I've watched quite a few of them, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, how does she do that? But but now that you've explained it, I can see, it's some of it's like, I'm going to pull the cards out, and there's other elements to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to talk too about some of the other stuff that you do in a bit as well. I want to just go here real quick because I got to show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to share the screen again, and I'm going to go to hers. I think this is it. February 28th. Okay, so I'm just going back to February 28th. This is only 2 weeks.
Mhm.
This is a video on YouTube, but I'm just reading the stuff that she's talking about. As these energies have changed, and we got into January. There was kind of this cold winter kind of feeling in January and February, clean up, hibernate, whatever. And then this stuff really started to come out. In my own experience and some of the things I'm seeing, and I'm reading this, it's almost like you're the headlines from that period. Divine feminine and divine masculine collectives are in the process of landing on their highest timeline potential. A deeper process of healing and recovery are occurring now. I mean, this captures to me like the spirit of it. It's like, okay, the awareness has come in of the real fairy tale, the truth, etc. Nirvana, whatever you want to call it. It's actually there. It's a potential that can be had. And at the same time, at the last the last sentence, you talk about kind of the initiation and what must occur in order to reach that place. This is a deep, to me, a very deep level of awareness. Now, if you go to just a few days later, uh, and I see this both collectively, but also in my own experience, obviously, with my partner. Divine feminine and divine masculine collectives are being called to level up into their highest alignment potential. So it's like, you're in the no bullshit zone now. This shift is bringing up survival fears to be transmuted to make space for success and prosperity. So the energy of what you're saying about the survival fears is the energy of not losing your house or losing your
Mhm.
money or losing your whatever. It's losing that part of you that you're trying to step into, that you've seen the potential, yet what you think it is you got to let go of. And a lot of times that might come in the form of another person, right?
Mhm.
So and then you kicked into the feminine for the next couple. Divine feminine leadership. I love this part. Divine feminine leadership, like to me, it meant like what I was watching, walking into their power, and you can see it. It's not going to stop, and it's pure divine feminine informing the divine masculine on what moves to make in the physical world, which is the physical construction, and that's exactly right. Because if you look at it and I'm speaking just from my own experience and what I've observed over the years, but I know men, I know me, and I'm talking about standalone physical male from the old paradigm. There's nothing, there is absolutely nothing greater to him than her influence or her support, her belief in him, right?
Mhm.
So it's like just even reading this, I'm like, she gets this. Like the mask, like to unleash the masculine, the feminine says, "Hey, this is what's up." Okay, in you know what I mean? I mean, I think
Mhm.
it's okay. So then it says, "Divine feminine, you're not meant to do it all alone." A message for feminine and masculine, acknowledging the connection, the initiation, and their own self reflection process, which is how they get to each other, right? I
Mhm.
love this part. This was March the 7th. It was like deja vu. Connections recalibrated. Uncomfortable emotional surges coming up as the connections recalibrate to where and who we actually are now. This is how we build a strength. A couple more. Divine feminine masculine, your well-being is your foundation. Your power is in the present, refocusing your energy back to you, looking at all the areas of your life to build a thriving foundation. Or, a really great way of saying, let that shit go, homie. You're two new people, and you're two new energies within yourself, if you want to look at it from a singular level. And let's work with what we have and where we're going or where we want to go. And I love
Mhm.
this one. This is the one that your friend said look like me. Uh,
Yeah.
Divine masculine, ready to face the truth for himself. Divine masculine is getting to know himself for the first time. He's contemplating what he truly wants, recalibrating what's been expected of him with what he knows is true deep down. Like that's like snapshot. I mean, it's like um, everything seems to be the lifts seem to be coming with these bittersweet kind of you know how like when you're naive and you figure something out after a long time. I just did this something that happened at 62 years. It's like that, and a lot of it's been very deep and very masculine. And I
Mhm.
haven't really, um, I have not really, I know that my work has influenced the collective, like my relationship and that
Mhm.
type of thing, but I've never felt the masculine more, uh, and the fact that it's collective more than in the last this period, like the last few weeks. Yeah. So what I was going to say, or to kind of conclude all that, is that what I'm going to just ask you straight up: are you experiencing these things that you're writing about and you're connected to within yourself? Like, is your masculine and feminine? Do they have a discourse, a dialogue?
Yes. Yes. I would say it happens in multiple ways, I guess. I have it internally where I see my own actions or my own ways of just being. Then I also look at my relationships being reflected around me. So sometimes, even when I'm working with other females, their inner masculine, we're working on that. So I'll even see that when I'm working with masculines as well. There will be similar patterns, even though it's different sexes. So um, I see it in that way. And then, yes, and the energies, I still, that masculine still works with me. Yep.
Mm.
So,
You know, Morgan started a Yoniverse group. With some of the session work she's been doing the last couple of
oh,
years,
nice.
and obviously it's all women. And then during this period, like going back 2 to 3 weeks, um, it became like, what about a men's group? And so we did the first two last week. Um, and it was pretty interesting. And I've been feeling this, like I was talking to you about. There's something, and maybe you can speak to this because you have men that are clients, but there's something deep, deep in, I guess you would say, the persona or the transformation, or I don't really know how to explain it. The bottom of the barrel, the almost like the surrender, the submission of this old masculine, and things that were at the bottom of the barrel. I had no idea. Like, and so I
Mhm.
listened to, after these sessions that she runs, there's a talk, and she left, so it could be all men, which was really interesting. And I won't talk about it because it's private, but just in a general way, I think that there's a journey that he went through that she didn't know about, that the world didn't know about,
Mhm.
and it really hurt to be the soldier, to be the art, in the military guy, what I
Mm.
mean, to it, even to be associated with that. It really hurt to not be able to be in an arena, and I've been there, and um, utilized that softness of the feminine.
Mhm.
I mean, in other words, there was some real beatings that took place. And then, of course, at the bottom of it is, you know, the sexual distortion, which
Mhm.
was pretty top, which was a big topic with these chats afterwards. So I don't know. I'm just curious if you don't have to get personal or anything like that, but like, are you seeing that depth in your clients? Like this, like these things are dark in the deep corner of the closet, and like, I mean, it's just like it's almost like
Yes.
it almost kills you.
Yes. I actually, well, you already know how deeply I'm connected to and have compassion for the masculine,
Mm,
but I did have a session where through the session and I was able to experience it even deeper from his perspective and felt it's actually kinda interesting, but it's connected back to some of the topics we talked to last year with the masculine's connection to the earth. And in the session, I actually got tears and cried because I felt in the masculine system where they've, like, absorbed the pain of the things that have happened on Earth as a way of, like, wanting to protect everyone,
right.
and then they kind of absorbed it into their body, but the as a protective for everyone, but then they started to believe it was them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, "That is deep," and, like, I know that's why I always say in my videos, like, especially I do have a lot of feminines on the channel, like, the masculines are going through their process, and it's not going to look like ours, and there's
Right.
a whole different level of things that are happening.
Yeah. Definitely. One of those comments, probably the most striking comment that I heard in those two after talks, was a guy. That's exactly what he said. He was kind of talking about what you're saying, and then he just made this sentence, and he said, I don't know what adjective he used, but he was like, the pain or the realization that I couldn't protect. And I went, whoa. And that's kind of what it's like because as a
Mhm,
man, you wake up one day because you fight till the end, and it's for her, and it's for the kids, and it's for the country, and you go all the way, and it could be in war, and it could be in
mhm,
corporate world, and it could just be in whatever arenas. But it's like everything you stand for,
mhm,
every single thing you stand for. And I guess, and again, I'm very sensitive to this whole dialogue of masculine and feminine because of this very thing. I don't feel that there's been too much judgment and condemnation, even if we couldn't see it, which we couldn't. We know how this victim consciousness, etc., works. It's a very subtle thing, and as we get to be more expanded, we can see these things, and it hurts. But my point
mhm,
is that like the masculine, coming to the realization that everything you stood for, everything you were working for, even though 100% you were well intended, and you know what I mean. I mean, we all had our programming, whatever the case is, but
yeah,
in your heart of hearts, and it just gets pulled out from under you,
mhm,
and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm
yes,
laughing, but it's not laughable, but it's like, you're like you wake up on your knees, buck naked, like a little kid, like a boy, and you're going, holy shit. Um, and this happened to me, and it's
yeah,
still happening to me. And I'm talking about Sology. I'm talking
mhm,
about my relationship. I'm talking about Todd. Um, and I know that it needs to come out of me, and I know that it needs to come out of men. And I don't have
mhm,
all the answers, but it feels like, going back to the, kind of learn from you, the inner discourse. And I actually had a moment about a week ago, and I was in this atrium in this townhouse, and I was cleaning it. I was rinsing the tile, and I was sweeping it. I had some music on it, and in my head, I just knew, oh, in this moment, you're feminine and you're masculine are because what it was, it's like I moved my mom back in her townhouse, got her out of a senior citizen place,
mm,
and it hasn't been worked on, and it's just real bland. So I'm like walking through it going, I got to change the energy of this place. We need to get this place looking right. We need to get the energy right. And then it's like my other hand, my right hand, my masculine gets the broom and just starts getting everything in order.
Mhm.
And so the reason I say that is because it feels like that in order for this to, you know, how we said she needs a place that she's safe to be able to speak. It's
Mhm.
the same thing, but it's the other way around where she
Mhm.
needed that assurance and protection from him. It's just weird. It's different. He needs to know that you know, because it's got to happen. It's got to
Yes.
happen. And the feminine presence has to be there, whether it's three or four men talking or whether it's, you know, something like this. I just feel like it needs to be there because that's the missing link, right? Yeah. And then that last part where you were saying, what did you say? Her her movement, I'm just using my words, created influence on him. And
Mhm.
that's another thing that I see happening. I see it happening both ways. Like I can see where
Yes.
in order for her to get to that point you're talking about, the point that you're
Mhm.
representing, and so many others, he had to hold a certain space. And then when she got there, that was part of the rug falling out. Nothing
Mhm.
against her at all. It was just it was almost like you can't clean up both sides at the same time. One's got to go,
Mhm.
then the other's got to go.
Mhm. Yes. That's why I talk a lot about how the collectives are working in tandem, even if it doesn't look like they're working together. It's like sometimes working on the opposite. And just like you said, like the masculine might be holding space for the feminine to advance. And then she gets to a certain point, and then it's her job to hold space for the
Right.
masculine to go to the next space. And then it just kind of keeps going, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that much better. Maybe because I'm a man. Because for, you know, you heard, and it was true, you know, the feminine are leading the way. And, you know, and you heard that a lot. 2012, 2014, 15, 17, hurry up, you know. Uh, and then you have that connotation of what you said. He starts to believe that's what he was. You know what I mean? But I agree. And that really feels like what's happened to me. And I'm not speaking about my personal life. I'm speaking about
Mhm.
I mean, like involving my partner or anyone else. I'm speaking about my own journey. And I heard in right when COVID hit, I heard very clearly, you know, for me anyway, I don't get that real clear, but every now and then you
Mhm.
get it. And it's like, this is it. And it was like, now you need to hold space. And I
Mhm.
knew that was being asked of my masculine, and I did my best to align with it. But come about, I don't know, December or January, maybe probably
Mhm.
January, um, I saw it. I felt it. I could feel the feminine fulfill herself, you know, and of course in the
Mhm.
energetic field. So now you're starting to see it. And I just went, whew.
Yes.
I never grieved. Uh, there was another big one. I never grieved. Um, I had to acknowledge a hole in my heart that I had always associated with others, and that was
Mhm.
always a female.
Mhm.
And I had to acknowledge that that was me.
Yes,
And so,
I can understand that.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So I'm really appreciative of you and anyone else, male or female. I, I might even say female because this is very virgin territory for these men, and me included. And I don't know of any other way out than how you started what you started with, you know, in the show is it's right here. It's got something to do with his voice, both energetically and literally,
Mhm.
which is,
That makes
you
sense.
know, which makes sense because that's what she needed, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I bet that's been an eye opener, you know, having a lot of sessions one on one with men.
Mhm. It's it's been helpful, um, to deepen my understanding. And as much as I can tap into my own inner masculine and relate to it, there are just some parts that, unless I'm learning it from a masculine, I'm not gonna know. You know? It's kind of like how you have your own shadow self and you don't know what you don't know till you know it, you know?
Right,
But it's
right.
definitely broadening my understanding, which I'm grateful for because then I can support that within other masculines, but also in hopefully helping the feminines understand the masculine
Yeah,
in a different way.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's happening. Um, so much of what we relate to each other, what we hear, because we all know we have different veils. So you might say one thing, and I'm hearing something else, especially when it comes to the battle of the sexes. But yeah, the words. How like a couple of years ago we all started to realize, oh, we can't be sarcastic anymore because it's a quantum thought reality. But wow, the thoughts we carry. If you've ever been in a relationship, everybody has, but like the thoughts we carry, these conversations we have in our head, and these stories about interaction with our partner or somebody else, right? Um,
Mhm.
and then that's power in itself. But but sometimes the words that we hear, and I realize that now, that was to nobody's fault, but we were speaking entirely two different languages, period.
Mhm.
End of story. I mean, there's just no way. But what you're talking about now, I believe is happening. I believe
Mhm.
they are starting to see each other, um, and and that's a powerful proposition.
Yes. And like we've talked about, I know you and I talked about it a while ago, how in reality, I know that I talk about the inner masculine and feminine, but really like you said, you found that hole in your heart and it was really just you for whatever those core soul wounds or whatever happened or whatever we chose at a soul level or humanity, however it came about, that we just got split from our own energy and, went on this journey all together. And now it's like as we're bringing the aspects of our own self home, it becomes much easier to have compassion for the other side. Everybody has to do their own stuff. No one can do it for you. That
True.
actually, I wanted to say that when you were talking about the masculine, wanting to protect and realizing they couldn't. I've had some thoughts and some experiences with that personally, but also, yes, looking at the masculine collective, it's like at some point we made these oaths to like save or to support. And the interesting part about those is like we made them when we didn't have the awareness that it was nothing we could ever possibly achieve because we can't do someone else's stuff for them.
Yeah.
So that burden got really, really heavy really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that's to me, that's deep insight from a woman because, like an example would be, um, and I've lived this. Okay, so corporate careers, or I'll just use myself. It was a corporate career, very successful, high achiever. So really, the performance kind of like superseded any political issues I might have because I wasn't like everybody else.
Mhm.
And so you're doing the right thing for the company and socially and even spiritually until the rug comes out. And of course, for your family, and you go years and years and years. See,
Cleared out.
so at least well, anyway. So what ends up happening is now this is a true story. Working for the number one company, really in the world for what it was doing, um, had a set of core values at that company that I was part of. And it said, number one, always do the right thing. Number two, if you see the right things not being done, take it to your whoever's your boss. And if you don't get an answer you like, in other words, you take it all the way to do the right thing because that's the number one thing. And we get to the end, and they didn't do the right thing, and I was a political scapegoat. Uh, and and so that was the
Mm.
essence of, oh my God, I got a house full of kids. I got a wife that, but young kids, lots of kids, and you're now broke because, you know, for whatever. But my point is, it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. So as a man, you put yourself into this patriarchal where you've been sold as a soldier, and you've been sold on the
Mm.
idea because you didn't have the awareness, just like you're talking about, and you go and make it happen to the best of your
Yeah.
abilities from your heart. And yeah, you're going to have an ego thing, and you're going to have this and that, but this is the core. And then
Mhm.
you find out that it's not true. Now you got to go home, so to speak, and tell everyone in your inner world that, you know, how long can you say it's their problem? I'm still the
Mhm.
one that you trusted. I'm still the one that was given that, responsibility, and yet it's failed. And so they can all say, daddy, husband, partner, son, father, we love you anyway. But in here, he's fucked. So this is the kind of stuff that, to me, because to me, it's, whether it's this subject or any other, and I've said this for years, but it's really come true now. I didn't know what I was talking about, but the most important code, the most valuable code we can have, is to bring into awareness. I guess you would say that, the remnants, or the golden nuggets, the painful golden nuggets of the human experience, because she didn't know about him, and he didn't know about her,
Mhm.
and just get it out in the open. But you know,
Yes.
I mean, this is obviously kind of freeing me up, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's part of what we do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you ever do like, like little groups,
Yeah,
things like that? Do you?
yeah, yeah. I actually just did one this week.
Mm.
It's like that was a New Earth entrepreneur group where I kind of am helping a group that are getting started.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then a couple weeks ago, I did one that was more of like a meditative energy,
Mm.
restoring sacred masculine and feminine essences.
Mm.
So I'm kind of just right now going based on what I'm seeing my people are looking for and what I'm able to provide, and just learning as we go.
I bet that's a massive energetic rush, positive, to
Yeah.
go from 500 in January to or whatever,
December. Yeah.
December, to 3,700. That's a lot of growth. And just to give everybody an idea, we didn't use YouTube for, I would say, probably, um, I don't know, 1,500 shows maybe.
Mm.
There might be 3,000 Soul Speaks 5Ds on there. But I remember when we started to use it, because it was early in the year, like a January, and we had 400 people, right? Just videos I'd put up from over the years. And I think I think I want to say over a year for us to get to 4,000. And we're doing, 3, 4 shows a day, right?
Yeah.
6 days a week. So that's speaks. I think that speaks to the personal power that we're stepping into. It also speaks to the energy collectively being more reciprocal. But I still know that you must have received a boatload of messages, comments, and that's a
Mhm.
lot of energy to take in. Was that a challenge?
Well, that's where I told you I think I was ready for it, and that's
Mm.
why it happened. Like, maybe before that, I might not have been ready, but at that point, I was. But I did actively, um it took a couple weeks for me to calibrate and kinda get a rhythm, of connecting with so many new people in a way that I just wanted to make sure that I was still doing my
Right,
high quality of work.
right, yeah.
So, Yeah, but it got into a pretty quick rhythm considering, and I'm just kinda trying things out, like I said, with the groups, and there's
Yeah,
been definitely a positive connection with the people that resonate with me, you know? I
right,
know I'm not for everybody, but for the
right,
people that wanna do or are doing deep work,
yeah.
they seem to connect with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I've been involved with this for a long time, and I
Mhm,
studied a lot of platforms. I've told you before, and I still do. And it amazes me. It's everything's upside down. It's backwards. So what it really gets down to, and I think I shared this with you last year, whenever you were getting started, it really gets down to the concentration of engagements that you have. um,
mhm,
and you have a very high concentration. So, like if, for instance, if you guys ever go to YouTube and look at videos, and it doesn't matter if they got a million, obviously, if you get into that, but let's just say like in the 100 to even 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 range, anyone that has 10% engagement, that's like select company. That's like you're touching people. So that's my feeling. My feeling is, I'd rather have a community of, let's say 5,000, 10,000 people and be very active,
mhm.
than have this huge number of 2 million, and it's just, a thing,
Yeah,
right? But
definitely. I agree with you on that.
and I think people like doing stuff like that you're doing, and many more people are, especially women. That influences the collective, and I think the feminine side of us has known that all along. And those that are in the male body, not 100%, but those are in the male body, are tapping into that part of themselves.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's going to be maybe another flavor to it. Is it's one thing for a woman who's been carrying the predominant feminine qualities. You're a perfect example, and then to kind of like make that evolution, bring the masculine in, and now you're putting it out. I've seen the
Mhm,
same thing happen with my partner. I'm seeing it happen with
mhm,
some other women, but it's another thing for a man who now has to uh, basically submit. And I say that in the best of ways. I say that in a sacred, reverent way.
mhm,
They both submit to each other, I guess you would say, but like
mhm.
it has to start with the feminine. That's where the information, or that's where the higher awareness is coming in, which is so cool because, like what you were saying in that one of those videos, then he goes out and creates the physical thing. And I
Mhm.
think we'll see men doing that, and you'll see a lessening of what you see in the podcast world, which is like 95% men,
Yeah.
um, with a unconscious, in my opinion, an unconscious uh, patriarchal subtlety that um, doesn't encourage, support, allow, recognize the feminine energy.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, I think having best of both worlds is where it's at.
I think so too.
Yeah. It's so
Right?
much more powerful.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And it doesn't have to be the couple. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be brother sister. It doesn't have to be. You know what I mean? Like it's just one and the other.
Right.
Because I mean,
Mhm.
like sitting in these things are like sitting in a session, right? For me.
Mhm.
So if there's one side that's feminine, one that's masculine, and they're both opening up 180 degrees and kind and try, because there's not a direction. There's no directions, but there is a
Mhm.
direction. So it's through the interaction that I think we present what's unknown, and therefore we write code, you could say, or uncover code,
Mhm.
original blueprint, whatever. So what
Yeah.
other stuff you were referring to? You mentioned this entrepreneur group. What other things are you getting into?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since, like, 2006, and I've done a bunch of different things, but approaching it definitely from, like, the new energy, right? So that you're more so coming from your heart. Like, my marketing strategy is to be available out on platforms where people can find me and then being authentic and then trusting the people who can benefit from me find me.
Right.
That's my marketing strategy, in a sense. So it's just how we're evolving. And the more I sat with it when I was talking about it, it's like, it's actually for someone. I used to be like a workaholic, so, and I did lead a lot from my masculine.
Right.
And then I would also do parts for my feminine, but it feels different now, like where I'm really honing in with both, like in that inner dance. So, um, I don't even know where I was just going with that, but I think just supporting people
Yeah.
who are in these energies, there's actually quite a few of them that are, have been activated, but they're alone and they're like, what do I do with all this energy? How do I harness it? How do I grow it? So
Really?
doing it.
Is
Yeah,
that
doing,
men, is that men too?
yeah, there's a few.
So what does that look like? Uh, no names, but I'm like, what does that look like? A guy? Does he get Kundalini activated, or is it like what does that look like for them?
I guess I am not entirely sure in that sense. I guess from what I'm seeing, it's like where that you get open to yourself, where you realize the things that you want,
Right.
right? You have that activation of like, oh wow, you experience what your potential could be, and then what your potential in a partnership could be. And then when it's gone, you're left there like, what just happened? But it pushes, and it's in a sense devastating
Yeah.
because you think you screwed up.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, it's really there to show you what your potential is. And now how can you bridge the gap between where you are to where you really want to be? And, it's a process
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's and it does have a connection to the external experience, or
Hmm.
the externals of your experience. And
Yes.
obviously, we're talking sacred union. So obviously, if you have a relationship, that's
Hmm.
probably I said the easiest. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say it's the easiest in the sense that it doesn't involve a bunch of characters. Like if I look at
Right.
my situation, I've got daughters, mother, partner. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And there
Yes.
has been some serious stuff go down with that in this period that we're talking about, where we cited your different productions. And of course, I'm working with an external feminine, so I have that advantage or that fast track, because I'm picking up on it now, as I think a lot of men are, and kind of like presented as I think the triad of my feminine triad,
Mm.
like to hold all three of those in one place. And I've had actually three experiences in the last probably 10 days.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, two of them were where I'm just walking and I see them appear, and then they all come to the middle, and something happens in my body, and then like whoa. Um, but yeah, that's I remember like in 2017, the first time Morgan came over here. Uh, we were actually staying right here, right? We came over here, and we were here like 5 weeks, and my mom was here, right? Totally different situation. Now, this is, remember, my mom and I didn't talk for 6 years
Mm.
from about that period till this past May. But I remember we were doing a session, and she was like, when you can treat every woman, or when you see every woman as the mother, as the divine mother or whatever. And I remember that. And that's
Mm.
kind of what I feel like is the time has come, I guess maybe you could say. Because there are no exceptions, right? There's no exceptions. There can't be any misogyny. There can't be any objectivity, obviously sexual violation. It's all energy, and I feel like that um, the feminine did a tremendous amount of womb healing. Like if you look at the first
Mm.
post 2012, the first 6 or 8 years, everything that was coming out, I don't mean everything specifically and literally, I just mean the energy of it. They were cleaning it out. right? They
Mhm.
were bringing it to its purity, and then to get to a point where the masculine faces the programming primarily directed at the masculine. I'm talking pornography, sexual distortion, power over, dominance, whatever the case is, even the horrific things um, that done to and done by uh, of a sexual nature. And again, this is all energy. It could be done many different ways. Could be done
Mhm.
many different ways. But for the masculine in us to acknowledge it all, it's an absolute necessity to bring in the highest potential that you speak of.
Mhm.
It absolutely, and I really appreciate the fact at the beginning of the show when you're talking about, um, yeah, I can see them, and I didn't know, nobody knew, and yeah, they need some support too. And this, it's the truth, and this isn't a victim consciousness kind of delivery here.
Mm-mm.
This is a, hey man, this shit hurts,
Mhm.
and I would just end with as a primary example, all these years, all through time, she said to him, "What? Tell me what you're feeling. What's going on there?" And I went through this in my relationship, and and I finally figured out, like, I can't tell you because I don't know. So let me go
Mhm.
over here in a cave and allow that
Mhm.
space because I'm taking it no matter what for my own
Yeah.
preservation, and then I'll come talk about it.
Yes.
And
That makes sense.
yeah, and I feel like that the men talking to the men will come because you can see that now, but it's in the old structure. You
Mm.
know, I think to come in and say, I got a yoni. I've got a feminine network within me, and I'm a, you know what I mean? Like to
Yeah.
really, and then on that end, and on the other end, talk about the things that nobody knew they were talking about. Oh yeah, I was always worried about how big or I mean how small I might be. I was always worried about how I might perform. Yeah, I always wondered, did she have a good experience? I mean, I'm using these examples, but this shows up in everything we do, every single
Mhm.
thing we do. Um, and then again, his perception of what she thinks of him.
Yeah. I believe it. I think that's the interesting part is so much of it is mirrored, but the masculines held it in and were tough about it, and the feminines expressed it emotionally in many cases, and so it looked one-sided,
Yeah,
but it definitely doesn't mean it necessarily was. I
no,
have noticed that and learned that the last few years.
yeah, that makes sense. Like the yin can't see the yang, and the yang can't see the yin, but it's the same
Mhm.
damn thing, and it is. And I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Not crystal clear, but I see, oh my God, it's the same thing. It just looks different, right?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, if you look at, for instance, and I know, just hang with me,
Mhm.
what so much is known about, which would be the sexual violation of the feminine.
Mhm.
Now you hold that energy there. The occurrence of that energy there in oneness, in unity. And what I mean by that is there's no bad guy, there's no good guy, and all that, right? And then over here, let's say you have the stereotypical masculine energy of violator, perpetrator. So if you take that into a personal level, here's someone that say um, experienced
Mhm.
as the, you could say, the victim or whatever, and over here that was the perpetrator. These are
Mhm.
the same soul journeys. They both involved sexual distortion to the nth degree. So they both went to the same place, but it just doesn't look that way. There was this curtain between the two, and they didn't know they were standing right next to each other.
Yeah. No, and what I've seen tell like, this is an observation or a thought I've had, actually, you can give me some feedback back if I'm in the right direction. I feel like when I look at it from an energetic standpoint, where the masculines were violated was when they were pointed away from their heart into only more of the distorted sexual energies as being what it means to be a masculine and having to be in those energies,
Mm.
even though that's not fully who they are. To some degree, it's a part of them, but not all of who they are. I don't believe.
Oh, you're right. Um, the only, um, yeah, thank you for that. The only, well, the sexual power that I'm talking about, the sacred
Mhm,
sexual energy of a soul. Now, in this
mhm,
case, that's in masculine form, um, is the potential of that is directly related to the sexual programming. So that's the only place I see. But yeah, he's so much more. But it all comes from the unleashing of that energy, which we think, and well, I believe there has been a lot of sex magic, uh, sodomy, uh, over all of these incarnations. If you look at different secret fraternities, and if you look at obviously the Vatican and all that stuff, and I can
mhm,
speak from experience, past life recollection. Um, but it goes back to what you said earlier. It's the hole in the heart. I thought it
mhm,
was out here, but it was me, right? So it's the
mhm,
same thing, but he's still thinking, um, you know, relating his image and his power and his value all based on what she believes of him. But the
mhm.
thing is, it's what he believes of himself. He's
Right.
just not tapped into that part because he's got no outlet for it. So what does that look like? Well, you got 3 out of 4 hits on the internet are porn.
Mhm,
You've got an alpha male, patriarchal scenario, kill or be killed. Uh, he brings that down to his sexuality. Um, he judges himself on how he makes her feel, how he pleases her, and that can be in the intimacy, and that can be with his career. You know what I mean? The
mhm,
whole thing. But the minute that in his head, it doesn't mean it's true, because one thing about the feminine, and we know this now, it's unconditional love. You could go out
mhm,
and be a serial killer, and you still have the mother's, you know what I mean, compassion and all that. But what the minute he enters a state of I'm inadequate, it immediately goes to his dick, and I'm speaking energetically, and
mhm,
and you know, and so what happens as that disconnect happens with the feminine? He turns over here for uh, release and identity, right?
mhm.
So now he's entered a state of you got to be a macho man, and every man will lie to you. It's like telling fishing stories, right? Everybody's like, yeah, I did this and I did that. And again, I'm speaking in metaphor. And and so what ends up happening is he is something on the outside, but on the inside, he knows the truth, and he
Mhm.
can't figure that out. And and he what distracts, numbs, um, and
Mm. Yes,
and,
I
it,
do.
and it's I know you do.
I do.
And now
I
and
do
now
know.
right, and now it's the end of the road. Now it's the end of
Mhm,
the road, and he's relieved. He's absolutely 100 fucking% relieved, that, and I'm speaking, and I'll say it straight up. I'm speaking from the collective that I know that I've tapped into in the last couple of months, and that's never really happened to me before. But I
nice.
know I can feel it, and yeah, he's relieved. Now, how long that's going to take to see in the physical world, I don't know. But every time I turn on, uh, podcast scenario, it's and I like watching Joe Rogan, and I like watching different things. They're interesting, but that's a man's world,
Yeah.
so to speak. Where is and I'm talking not talking about some of the plasticity that you're seeing out there now, and being a light worker's become a fad, and everybody's woke and all
Mhm,
that. I'm talking about the the skin and bones, the blood and guts, like this. Where
right.
the feminine presence is there, right? Like
Mhm,
I'd like to have uh, I was thinking about this today, and maybe that's because you were coming on. I was like, man, I would like to have a feminine interview me and just go this direction. And the reason that and I think you spoke to this earlier, the reason that especially in this climate, the reason that you're on the right track, like you were asking me a minute ago, am I going the right direction? Is because you don't know what's going to be said. You don't have anything in your head. You might have a couple of things that you want to share, like, oh, this might relate. They might relate to this,
Yeah.
but you just don't know what's going to happen, and your skin's crawling and tingling at the same time. It's deep stuff, brothers. It's deep stuff, and and
Yes.
and, and if you look at the fact that the you're going to associate the feminine energy that we are, or that half of us, in the heart, and you're going to focus the masculine on the mind. Which one is the ego closer to? So, and whose ego would be bigger theoretically in a patriarchal system where the man was the soldier? So don't bullshit yourself, guys. There's some very deep, subtle things here that it takes the innocence, the power of the innocence of the child to actually step out of, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And I'm ready because I'm tired as fuck.
I feel you on that. I think it's good. Overall, that collective energy that's coming through does feel like that baton is shifted so that the masculines, or at least this wave, can go through their process,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what's been coming through that I've been seeing.
Well, and like you said in that heading, the feminine influence, right? Like it's like you said, one goes through it
Mhm.
and the other holds space, and then once the other one goes through it, then the other one's left to go through what that one went through, right?
Yes.
So, but I'm talking long play here. I'm not talking like this week, even
Right.
though there's
Oh,
little
yeah.
cycles of it. Like it seems to me like this has been about a 4 year kind of cycle, and now I can see that feminine because I can see it in
Mhm.
myself. I can feel it in myself,
Yes.
and part of the reason I know that is because I don't know what the hell to do now. I'm like, am I going to have is Soulji going to be around? Am I going to have a talk show? Am I going to make music? Am I just going to check out and get offline?
Yes.
Seriously, I'm
I
having
went
these.
through the same thing.
Did you? Yeah,
Yep. Mhm. Yeah, I did.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
I think it's kind of an important point to check in with ourselves and, like, what feels in alignment with where we are now, and then, for me at least, that's when it didn't leave, but definitely it shifted. The way I related to what I was doing shifted, so it shifted the community.
yeah, yeah. Of course, you're like the source. We're all a source, and then extrapolating it out in service, which is which is yeah. See, it's just, I mean, like this thing with Sology. I never stopped for 12 years until December the 15th. I hit that wall and I didn't even know. I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown for a
Yeah,
couple 6 weeks or so. I realized a lot of things that I don't even want to talk about
yeah.
because I think I would probably just be snot coming out of my mouth. But I think it's important to come out, and I believe I will talk about it. Because it's not about the personal story; it's about the energies being brought into awareness, and therefore the transformation that takes place, which occurs through conscientious thought, word, and action.
Mhm,
Right, ownership of it.
mhm,
How can you have authority if you don't have accountability?
mhm.
So, as a man reviewing all this stuff, in my case, and I guess this is a good example because here's a guy who's been doing this 12, 13 years, whatever, and I've got all these producers I brought on, encouraging, just doing what I was doing, but actually bringing them all to one place, because we talked about it. And then when I hit that wall, don't even have it in me to talk to them. It's not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's stopped. I'm not saying it's go. I believe it's a go, but I can't say when. I
Mhm,
can't say when I can hand. You know what I mean. Like there's all this stuff, and the judgment all day long, every day. you should email them, you should do this, you should do that,
Mm.
and just a lot of different things. And then you got the mother energy, which has been huge in this past year for me. But yeah, at the bottom of the at the end of the day, I've got this Todd Medina man, and I've got this I will call like oversoul. Like
Mhm.
there's so much there, and I think this is reflective of all of us. Yet this part of me um, is being asked in with the greatest reverence for the multidimensionality in service as the let's just say as a masculine exemplifying that part or whatever uh, is being asked to just bear the naked truth, you know, just absolutely transparent, be transparent. And I'm like, what's that? I'm like, fuck ass
Well,
naked.
it's why that makes sense. It's like you have to figure it out for yourself first, right?
Yeah,
And I don't know, up until the last few years, I don't know that we had the space to do that. You know, we're just now starting to get this space. I know I took the last few years to do that with myself,
yeah,
you know? So it makes sense to me that it's starting to happen for the masculines, like I said, based on what I was seeing,
yeah.
because you guys were holding space for us while we looked at ours.
Well, I know that I don't know if you know that Morgan and I were uh, off for 11 and a half weeks,
Yeah.
and I woke up on September. I'm sorry, November the 9th, 9/11, right?
Mhm.
And I heard pop. You know, you're on the other side now, meaning
Mhm.
all of us, and nothing over there can hurt you anymore. And it was like in that moment I saw what it was, and I went, oh.
Mhm.
And then I reached out to her just to like bring things to equilibrium no matter what. There was no intention, but that feels like to me. And then listening to you talking about the fall when you started to make that, and so I
Mhm.
really feel like that's what occurred. And then about 60 days later, because I kept looking for it, I'm like, all right, man, everybody, that shit's back there. Let's start making stuff happen. I didn't realize I was still holding space.
Mhm.
And come around January the 11th, some big pop happens. And I went, oh, on one hand, oh, everybody sees it now. Then on the other hand, I went, oh, wait a minute. You got some stuff to look at. And that was another 4 or 5 weeks. But yeah, I'm with you. I feel like that, it's spring. Um, and yeah, it just fits now. Like what you said about doing all that work over the years, it's all being given back to us now um, at a pace that's I don't know. I'm kind of getting used to it now. I don't know about you.
Yes. It's kind of amazing how much muscle we've built and how much more capacity we're holding.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it really is. And then the impact of a collaboration. Um, you know, I don't. I think this is one period because I remember like it was like maybe the 8th of January, and I was saying, you know what? Wow. I mean, like I've never felt anything like this. Like just by the 8th of January, like the biggest month, biggest a year already. And then it just like before, but in some different, more comfortable way, or I don't know, just a better way. I don't know. It's a smoother way, less painful way. It's just continue to do that, and I feel like this is going to be the year we see the irrefutable truth of transformation. Basically,
Yeah,
at least in certain places, it'll
for
be
sure.
yeah, even moving past like mainstream media and in the energetic field. Have you noticed, like in your own evolution, like these last few months or whatever, have you noticed like a increase in the presence and let's just say the attributes of the third energy within your own experience, like where things happen? We used to say, "Oh, that's a coincidence," and "Oh, that's synchronicity," but like things are happening almost like every
Yeah.
step of the way. You're like, "Oh, thank you." And then you see, oh, I took this action and it brought this. I thought it was going to bring that, but I got this.
Yes.
Things, just weird things like that.
Yes, it seems like our actual co-creative abilities are much clearer.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yes, I know, yep, I have had moments. It's not 100% of the time, but there definitely seems to be more pockets of it, um, where a couple of years ago, I was just in the weeds.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I think it plays out. And again, I have to go back to my own situation because it's a good example because I think it's been out there a long time. It is a collaboration. Um, there is this certain something going on where there's a transition. You could probably speak to that because you were there and now you're here. That's part of really what you talked about, and I'm talking about the kind of like the transfer of power from what we perceive to what is, which is self empowerment, and the reality of what a unified field is, and that is everyone's at a round table with an equal seat, but
Mhm,
you're having this come into new form, um, where there was a point person, and what does that look like now? How does that field
mhm,
occur? And I've heard since I heard the name Sology in 2012, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. And now
mhm,
that's taken on a whole new meaning. Like, how do you
mhm,
do that? Or do you do that? Is it simply that we're now all operate or more effectively operating from that beehive intelligence? And that's what
mhm,
we've been aligning with and seeing and trying to create.
mhm,
Do we need to create this? The only thing I can feel right now, and Soldier is a great example, and I know it's going to have a new form that probably has some of what it had for sure. But
mhm,
what I do know is nothing's going to happen until it's supposed to happen.
mhm,
Nothing's going to push any buttons. And I'm saying this for as a person, as you, as like the way I see this energy working, you can't force anything. You can't, and if you try to make a choice or an action based on a program, or a
mhm.
program response, even, it gets shot down. The third energy works both ways.
Yeah. That's kind of I'm with you, and that's kinda some of the conversation in that New Earth Entrepreneur kinda group, right? So,
Mm.
just like you're saying, so it's a whole different energy leading it versus what we knew, and one of the main things that I told them in the group, no matter what you're building, make sure that it takes you and the other areas of your life into consideration,
Yeah,
right? So that it's actually sustainable in something, that's why sometimes I just try things because I wanna make sure it's something I can sustainably provide, or maybe it's just a one and done,
right.
and I suggest, like, I was like, "Let's just try different things." Then you find what you actually like to do and
Hmm.
that you're good at, and start there,
Yeah,
because that feels so important that if we get to build it our way, then we should enjoy every minute of it,
I
or
believe
most of it,
it. Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. I get that. Yeah, I think for me, like the music has always been kind of like over here, like just you know, I don't know. It's part of me, part of Sology or whatever, but kind of a just almost I want to say like a secondary thing,
Mhm,
but because of what I was telling you about the voice,
mhm,
that whole thing, and it's not just that because it's the music, like, and he ties very. It's all sacred geometry, and I mean he's it's not just music, right? Like
right.
and then you start to hang around him, and if you start to get into that, which is just another form of like this, what we're doing,
Mhm,
and um, and then I realized, you know what? I love to write songs every day for an hour or two.
that's awesome.
I love to do that. I want to expand this experience. I want to try to phrase better. I want to try to carry a melody better. Whatever. But with no no concern for, like popularity or money or people's, wow, good job. No, I want to do it.
Yes,
And
yes.
you know what I mean? And then I
Right.
and then I started to go, okay, well, okay, that's number one. That's and then what about a talk show? And it went to like this place of like, I'm done. 4,500 shows. I'm done. F it. Everybody's doing their own thing now. I can take pride in that. And then it came back. I'm like, no, I want to have some real conversations. I don't want to have even what Sology had before, which I think was somewhat unique, right? Um, I want to have real conversations with people
Mhm,
that will have them with me, and then I think kind of like what you're talking about. You just try things, and
mhm.
and you see what kind of flows in that
Yeah.
trinified energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Somebody said throwing spaghetti on the wall. Yeah. Well,
My grandfather used to do that, that's hilarious.
did he really? I thought
Yes,
that was just a
to make us
saying.
laugh. No, he used to
Oh, I got
literally do
yeah, yeah.
it just to make us laugh, to.
I remember my brother got pissed off at a Thanksgiving one time. He was about 19 or 20 and took a handful of potato salad and threw it against the wall. Tantrum. Um, yeah, what you were just talking about. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, do you have any groups coming up or anything you want to tell people about?
Well, I did a part 2 of that New Earth Entrepreneur because I do have people, in different time zones. So the next one's on the 23rd, if anybody's interested in that. It's a Saturday at 2. I have my one-on-ones. I think I'll be doing some more groups that are more, like I said, in the energy type of realm. When I do those, we go into like the dissolving, like my one-on-ones and my groups are a lot about kind of unraveling or dissolving the old programming
Hmm.
and bringing in more of the aspects or the true soul energy and whatever way that plays out. I have actually a core wound one I did free on my channel if anybody wanted to check that out. But
Is everything pretty much found at your website? Or
yeah, yeah. And well, I don't explain everything I do out just because it's a lot, but I
yeah,
do have the sessions and you can kind of see the categories under
yeah.
those.
I was out here earlier actually. Let
Oh,
me go
nice.
back to so yeah, and it's well done by the way.
I did it myself.
Did you really?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
I used to could do stuff like that. I don't know why I can't do anything like that anymore. I can't do anything that's like old masculine. I don't know what it is. Yeah, intuitive coaching, energy work, reading, soul retrieval sessions, intuitive massage. How does that work?
Well, I am a licensed massage therapist,
Okay.
and I added that back in actually a few months ago because those people I have locally, I found people were really needing like the craniosacral.
Okay.
Like, I kinda do a combo of, like, acupressure and just supporting the body being able to receive their energy.
But you're doing that through distance too, right?
Well, not the massage. I mean, I
Oh,
guess, yes,
okay.
energetically, I can to a degree, but yes.
Okay. I thought it was like distance Reiki or whatever, remote Reiki or
I
something.
have a office too, but
Oh, cool.
yes,
Very cool.
so I do both. I have people local and then around the globe.
Wow. And these testimonials, I was looking at them earlier. There's pretty strong testimonials in here, which is speaks to it speaks to what you're doing. Right
Well, I
on.
appreciate you.
Yeah. No, no. I think again that um, what you said, about well, the good thing about trying something is you tried, right? And so I think there's a lot to be said for that, and I know how difficult it is, to build something, and it's refreshing to see the. I didn't know it was since December, but the progress because as the individual goes, so goes the collective. You can get a idea of what's happening collective. We've been talking about this, the feminine.
Mhm.
Uh, I guess you could say coming fully in, and the influence it's had immediately on the masculine part and etc. But yeah, thanks for continuing on, and and not giving up. Because,
Mm,
if I had to say anything, not from a victim standpoint, but I guess it would be, I don't know. Um, if I could tell anyone uh, the messages, you know, maybe I didn't follow through with this, or just the human frailty, is with all this that you see, and even like looking at you, looking at her, that shit's going on every day. We're,
mhm,
she's going through the same thing every day that everyone else is, that everyone's talking about. And
mhm,
it's almost become unspeakable because it's moving so fast. Yet there is a thread that you're following, and those like you that are building, that's fresh and new, that does take that throw the throw the spaghetti against the wall kind of thing. Like, we're in a place of no judgment now, no judgment of self. So, I think that's something you said earlier too, was almost like recognize the efforts that you've made and that you make in the present moment. Um,
mhm.
you know, and
Hey,
win
my
lose.
motto oh, sorry.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
I
you.
was gonna say my motto this past couple of years has become space and grace because we're all going through major
Yeah,
transformation, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah,
So it's like we're in the middle of it, and we don't necessarily know exactly where we're gonna land, but we're working towards those intentions. How we get there is a whole
yeah,
other,
yeah,
um, experience.
yeah, yeah. And it's like those. What were those things called? Those when you were a kid and they had like a gray thing, and you would draw with the pen, and it would make all the black, and then
Yes,
you'd lift it, and it would clear it.
yes,
You know what I'm talking about?
yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's like that too. Like
Yeah.
there's an element of that too involved,
Mhm.
because man, the self judgment thing is
Yes.
huge, right? Like that's just it. That's all there is to it. So I think what you're talking about with the trying things it's okay, right? I mean, it's all
Mhm.
right because we're in the no judgment zone now. No judgment of self. Like,
Yes.
but that applies too, like win, lose, or draw. Like you have a big
Yes.
success. Wow, look what I did! I went viral. You know what? Forget about that too, because the thing, what is it called?
Yes.
You
No,
just
yes, the detachment and just getting in the present moment. Oh, Etch a Sketch.
it's a sketch. Yeah, it's an
Yes.
sketch. Yeah. So just remember, every day
Somebody
is the
wrote it
next
in the
one.
comments.
And it doesn't mean you've lost anything. That's another thing too. Like every time you surrender, uh, you get to the other side, and what you had is still there times 10, and you got all this other stuff, right?
Mhm.
And then yeah. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was very therapeutic for me. I hope I didn't talk your ear off.
No, it was awesome, I appreciate it.
And
It was good
yeah,
to see you again.
it's good to see you. You guys. That's over at Harmonious Hearts. Hang on, let me get the proper URL, and let's see, harmonioushearts.life. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the website, yep.
copy, and then I'll stick it in the on the different platforms since I can do that here. Boom. So that's where you can find her, Danielle Wilk. Hopefully, we'll get to see you again soon, and all blessings to you and yours and all your endeavors, and keep on going. And thank you for the inspiration, the motivation, and um, acknowledgement from the masculine perspective, and I'm sure the feminine feel the same.
Yes. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me,
Okay,
and have a good weekend.
you take care.
Alright.